I talk about more soft skills than I talk about hard skills, because most of us have the hard skills. Like, can you work this program? That's a yes or no. You either work Illustrator or you don't. Whether or not you're novice, intermediate, advanced is still a yes or no question. But that, how do I navigate the workspace to get the promotion? That's not a hard skill. That's a set of soft skills.
Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated to providing you with life strategies with a little bit of entrepreneur advice. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Hey, good people. Welcome back to the Networking with Michelle show. I'm your host, Michelle Gourmet, life strategies with a bit of entrepreneurial advice. And today we get real professional. Look, I'm so blessed to have this conversation. Today, have a nice discussion with Sable B. She reached out to me online some months ago, finally got our schedules coordinated. And when we jumped online, it just clicked. Like, we probably spent about 15, 20 minutes talking before the interview. And I was like, stop. We got to press record. Okay, we got to press record. And you're going to love her. As soon, you're going to love her immediately, right away. And just a real cool sister. We talked about everything, race, culture, Black Panther, and then we get into the professional stuff. So just rock with us. Great interview. Check her out, Sable B, founder of Real Brown Girls, a community of women online supporting each other professionally and beyond. And that's so important. So fellas, I know I got a couple brothers that listen. So definitely share this to your wife, to your girlfriend, to your mother, whoever can benefit from this. Don't hold this information, and share this with your best friend too. It's a great conversation. And without further ado, here we go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Networking with Michelle show. Today's special guest is Sable B, Real Brown Girl. How are you doing today?
That sounds like a radio opening. Like I was going to come and drop 16 bars.
Hey, if you got it.
No, I don't. No.
If you got it, go for it.
That's not in my skill set at all.
So why don't you tell the listeners, who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff.
I love when people ask me that. I always start because it throws people off center. I'm like, I'm just a brown girl from Brooklyn.
I love it.
And they don't know what to do with that, but that's literally like how I start. But it's true. I am a brown girl from Brooklyn. Yes, I went to school. Yes, I graduated. Yes, I've had some years on my resume now with a career. But like, I still believe like I'm that girl next door. I hung out on the stoop. I got in trouble if the lights were on outside, and I was still outside to notice the lights were on. And then I ran inside. Like, I'm still that girl.
How do you keep it so simple when so much is based off of credentials and income and all that kind of stuff?
I think I'm not going to pretend that I've never put any weight on it. I'm not going to pretend that I still don't do it now. I will say, though, after you meet a bunch of people who have graduated from esteemed universities and are not that intelligent, and you've met a bunch of people who have not graduated and are some of the most intelligent people I recognize it's a piece of paper that says, I know how to pass a few tests. I know how to write a couple of papers. But it really has no weight when it comes to like valuing or measuring intellect. And I think that's how I've kept it simple.
I think it does have weight, right? But do you think as you get older, it loses that weight?
See, you're right. I should say that it doesn't have weight. I think there are certain fields and industries where it has more weight than in others. So just hearing somebody graduated, it's not enough for there to be weight. But if it's a certain field and you've gotten to a certain level, then I'm like, okay. You know about this. Like, you might not be intelligent in every industry, in every field, because that's just not possible. But you do know that. Like, you're very good or you're an expert at that. I do think as time goes on, it's not that the paper loses weight, the GPA attached to the paper. Like there comes a point where no one's asking you, what was your GPA? No one cares if you graduated magna summa, what have you. So I think that definitely loses weight. The paper itself, like I said, I think you're right to push back. I think it depends on the industry.
I think one thing that I realized, because it took me a long time, it took me 11 years to get my undergrad degree. Mm-hmm. And I got a degree in finance, and people assumed I was paid a lot. I mean, I was taken care of, but they assumed I'm like, Houston's not Wall Street, but I'm doing all right. Yeah. But I just remember coming out of that phase, I would say between the age of 23 to 28, people like, what do you do?
That's the first question.
And based off of your answer, your degree, job title, and corporation, it kind of determined if we were even going to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I there has to be a better way to communicate and develop friendships based off of that. And I stopped telling people what I did. I was like, I like to have fun, and just confused.
Yeah, you're right, especially in New York, where I am. They might ask you your name. That might be question one, but for sure, top two is what do you do? And I'm always like, so you want to know how I make my living before you want to know if I'm a serial killer,
right?
Or if I'm a child molester. Like before you want to know any of these things, you're trying to deduce how much I bring home, what network I might or might not have. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell people, I eat. Like, what do you do? Well, I eat lots of good food as much as I can. I eat. I'm a professional foodie. And then they'll go, well, you're a food blogger? No.
You gotta make money. I think maybe it was 2 years ago, I went to a networking event, and this lady of Caucasian descent asked me, how do you make your money? And I was like I was really taken aback, because it kind of felt like it's like entrepreneurship is not good enough, or whatever title falls under entrepreneurship. And which I'm like, okay, even though she surprised me, I was like, there's a lot of broke entrepreneurs.
Tell me about it.
But to say, how do you make your money? I thought that was really bold.
Yeah. When someone has asked me a very bold question that I either wasn't prepared for or simply wasn't in the mood to answer, I have learned to flip that same question right back on them. Oh, yeah. Like, how do you make your money? Well, how do you make your money now that you mentioned it? And then put you right back on the spotlight. Because sometimes it's just like, when I realized the minute you graduate from college, you're no longer in these quote unquote safe spaces where you just get to learn each other before diving into personal business. So it's like finding ways to ask questions where you could just learn about the person versus like, well, what do you do? Where do you live? How much do you make? Where did you graduate? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hi, my name is Sable. My favorite color is red. I really like to eat food. I listen to all types of music, just like regular, I'm a lot more than the school I went to or the company I work for, but you're right. People really, I'm like, I forget met you. I'm meeting you.
Yeah.
In this present moment. And right. You already went there.
Right.
Yeah. It's bizarre how people approach conversations.
So I'm very curious about you in the sense of the work you do. So, with all that being said, right?
For that introduction.
But ... No, but I guess what has been your experience professionally in order for you to form realbrowngirls.com?
It's been a mix. It's definitely been a mix. So one thing I tell people off the bat, depending on what kind of conversation we're having, but this would be one of them, is I think I've had an interesting blend of experiences because based on phenotype, people can't figure out where I'm from or where my family's from. So a lot of the initial experiences other people, other groups of people might have, I don't have because they're literally trying to figure out where am I from to decide how they're going to navigate conversations with me. So I definitely they would check other box for me because they're like, so where are you from? And you know how I answer that, Michelle? I tell them Earth. I do, just to mess with a lot of people. When did I start doing that? In college. Where are you from? Because I might answer Brooklyn or New York. Yeah. And they're like, no, where's your family from?
Right.
Well, both of my parents were born in Brooklyn as well. And they're like, no, but your grandparents. All right, now we got 4 people. That's 4 different places. And I know what you're reaching for. And I'm always like, well, why do you need that information to be able to have this early friendship or this early networking conversation with me? So I think because of those types of experiences, I've had an interesting blend of, there were people from first sight, they knew or they felt that I was Black, identified as Black American. There were other people that were like, I don't know, that last name, you might be Native American, but clearly not full, but this. Yeah. And other people, they're like, I don't know, you look just like my aunt and we're Ethiopian. So they're trying to figure me out, which is definitely, and then my hair texture, I have curly hair. And this was before the natural hair movement. I've always worn my hair very curly. My texture is not quite Tia and Tamara, the sister twins, but it's only about maybe a little bit curlier than theirs. And as far as thickness goes, because my hair is really not thick, it's fine. So the hair doesn't help the complexion. So they're really trying to figure me out. And that's changed a lot of my experiences from people who I realized, conversation 3 or 4, they thought I was something else other than what I self-identify, which is Black American, by the way. And they'll start talking about, those people. And then I'm listening, I'm like, what do you think I am? Mm-hmm. And then they'll say whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, wrong. Or there's another assumption, they'll talk about those people. Although I don't self-identify that way, I'd go, but wait, what if I was those people? So I've had those types of experiences for the most part professionally because people didn't know what box to put me in.
Yeah. Oh my God. So much of this is real in the sense that I've always identified as African American. Mm-hmm. And then recently, very recently, this month.
Recent.
The month of March.
You said 2 days ago, actually.
I'm starting to say Cameroon American. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, how come I didn't say this earlier? 30 something years ago. And I'm starting to feel like it is important, even though I was born in the States, my parents, all of my mother, father, and stepmother are all from Cameroon. Mm-hmm. I was like, I wish I stated that earlier because I love us, right? I love Black folk, but I do feel like we do need to do a better job kind of distinguishing ourselves a little bit, just because people are so ignorant. People a few of us, then opposite of us. But I don't know. I just think culture and ethnic group and so much of that is very, very important. And I kind of feel like overall our pride is dwindling and we need to hold on to that as much as possible.
And I think this country just does a horrible job with teaching race versus ethnicity.
Yeah.
So it's like, just because I say, yes, I'm Black, that does not mean you now know where my family comes from. Or just because you say, yes, you're white. Okay, what does that mean? So, and granted, those are the same questions I don't often answer for people because they're trying to figure me out, which it's humorous for me. It's frustrating for them. But I think you're right. And the idea of diversity, and which is a word that I have a love-hate relationship with, is I feel like sometimes diversity is only used in the context if there's a room that is predominantly white, then we say there's no diversity there. Yes, there is diversity. There's diversity in class, there's diversity in experience, there's diversity in income level, what have you. There's diversity in ethnicity. There might not be diversity in race in that room.
Yeah.
So I think the issue with using those words, it's like, all right, but in what context? Because diversity does not only mean race. So even when you have, like for me, a lot of people give me pushback that Real Brown Girls is specifically for women of color. And they're like, well, there's no diversity there. Really?
Yeah.
Tell me how. Because they're only looking from like a racial standpoint. And I'm like, well, actually, Southeast Asians aren't Black, but they're women of color. But that's another geographical lesson. I'm not here to, here to give you today. But, when we hear diversity and inclusion, we only, and I say we, generically speaking,
society,
because of how it's used, we're literally only talking about race. So you're right. Like, it makes perfect sense that you grew up saying African American, because like that's the only label you could have if you had a certain pigment to your skin. Like, no one was saying that. Like, growing up, you knew your friend was Nigerian, but they didn't say Nigerian American.
Right.
You knew your friend was from Ghana. They didn't say that. It was just like, my parents are from Africa. I came here. We came here whenever the Cayman came, and here you're Black.
Yeah. Period. But I'm starting to tell people, I'm like, look, every white person is not American.
Thank you.
Culture shock.
Completely culture shock. And they're like, no, but he's so-and-so. He's, and they might name a country. Like, no, he's not white. He's such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how is Nigerian Black, but that's not white?
Right.
Please explain that logic to me. So it's because of how this country just handles, if we handle the realistic history of this country better, I think society would be better prepared to have those conversations. But because we kind of like cover up, it's like when your mother's coming over and you ain't really clean up, so you throw everything in a closet, hoping she doesn't open that one door. Because that's how we handle like the reality for how the United States of America came to be. We can't possibly have these necessary conversations because we don't possess the background knowledge and we're not working with the same language to be able to have a productive conversation. Because I have watched two people like go at it. They were saying the same thing. They were using different language.
Context is everything. Yeah.
So like none of that surprises me. And you're right. The white culture shock is, I just laugh. I know I should not laugh, but it tickles me that you're like, really? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So simple, but yet so profound.
So profound.
Did you watch Black Panther?
I did watch Black Panther.
Now, we mentioned earlier about the article that came out a couple of weeks saying there are several African countries that still owe money to France and possibly other European countries. And I kind of wonder, like, if Africa, I'm going to say this as a whole, if Africa didn't owe that money to these European countries, how real could Wakanda be, right, for each country? Or I should say the continent as a whole. I don't know. It just had me thinking.
Yeah. Well, I don't even call it Black Panther. I straight up go, did you see Wakanda? I have to remember that the name of the movie is Black Panther. But I think, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's a very loaded question, especially for folks who don't realize that Africa is a continent,
right,
and not one country. Like, I remember someone asked me in high school, they was like, do you speak African?
Girl, don't get me started.
I literally looked at her and I didn't say anything. So she repeated herself with the tone as if I was stupid. And she said, well, why won't you respond to me? And I told her, I said, because my grandmother said, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. So this is me exercising my right not to say anything, because the fact that you would say that, I don't have 3 hours to sit here and explain to you or pull out a map. This was before Google and everyone had colored stuff. I don't even think most folks didn't have a cell phone. Like, if you had a cell phone in high school, like, everyone deduced your parents were rich or something. So but I think that so obviously Wakanda is not real and it's like this utopia. Okay. Even though within the utopia you can definitely find issues or things to discuss that someone I'm sure is going to write a dissertation about within the next 3 years. Just completely confident about that. What I appreciated was the ability to quote unquote pretend and visualize, like really close your eyes and imagine a world without colonialism and imperialism and race. Like, what could that have been like? For some people, that makes them angry. For some people, that's going to give them hope. For some people, it could be motivational to work towards that. So I think that depending on the personality of a person, there was definitely something to take away from Black Panther. Now, as far as countries still owing money to these Western countries, I mean, I don't know what else to say besides it's downright disgusting. But what I can say after just doing a lot of research, because my bachelor's is actually in African American Studies, and it was approached from a global perspective, not a specific U.S. perspective, was the idea of if someone, I'm not even talking countries here, but if someone does not have the same moral compass as you, you cannot expect them to navigate the world the way you do, because their compass is going to give them different directions. Of course, that sounds cute until you're talking about enslaving an entire group of people and having entire countries in debt, et cetera, et cetera. But it's this idea of if someone literally does not value things the way you value things and value people and human life the way you value, I literally do not expect them or him or her to do things the way I do things. Because if that were the case, certain things would have never happened because we were operating from the same moral compass. So I say that to say I don't put past a lot of things. Like, I don't put a lot of things past people, because I'm like, yeah, you are capable of that. Because that's how you navigate. That's how you value human life. But yeah, it's at this point, it's like, why can't you just wipe the slate clean? But it's a business.
Yeah.
And when you realize how things really operate from like a business standpoint, human life and all those things don't factor into this equation of profit in the end. It's disgusting, but it's literally just a fact. A frightening fact.
Right.
For someone with a moral compass. A logistical, pragmatic fact from someone who just sees numbers.
Oh man, it's so much with that. And I remember reading the article. I don't remember the date of the article, but just for it to come across my screen after Black Panther being released, it definitely impacted me in such a way that's like, man, like what if, like beyond the movie, what if? And yes, Wakanda's utopia, but in my mind was, what if we did manage our resources better?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Resources meaning, their natural resources from the ground, money, people, economic development, like
all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Wakanda was a great Black Panther, Wakanda, whatever. I want to do that right now. Like pretend like I can go fight somebody and like kick their butts with my magic suit. But I think it was important for children to see that you could have someone of color in leadership and that's it. Because leadership is questioned. Like, and a lot of people experience this in stores, like retail stores. They're the manager. They're literally the higher up manager, but they're of color. And the customer is not satisfied with how they're handling the situation. They're like, can I speak to your manager? And it's like, but I am the manager.
Right.
And they're like, no, the person above you. No, ma'am, that's me. And they're like, no, the person, ma'am, sir, whoever, that's me. And your authority is always being questioned. So I think it was wonderful for younger children to see, like, you can be in a position of authority and that does not have to be questioned. Or when it is questioned, you just look at them like, no, but that's me. Like, you don't have to list down your credentials, what school you went to, what GPA, how many years of experience, none of that. Your resume does not have to be shared. That's me. So I think from that standpoint, it was really, really, really good for the kids to see. And of course, to think they're Black Panther and go fall off beds fighting with each other afterwards. I know that happened in a couple of them.
Do you think there's going to be a way for Africans and Black Americans to eventually come together and have a better and sustainable life, whether it's in America or in the continent of Africa?
I do think so. I think when I think about the corny joke that the African booty scratcher, like that stupid, nonsensical joke that was shared growing up, to the fact that I've been around little kids and I'm not hearing that. Yeah. It's just regular jokes. It's not like, oh, you're from Africa joke. I do think, and as Africans who've come to the country and they've had children, or children are having children, the longer we are here, I do think that the bridge, like the bridge was already built. Like the bridge was there. I do think people are now walking across the bridge and beginning to have those conversations. And now with everyone having the travel bug and visiting different countries and realize the Discovery Channel lied to you. Like for the people who grew up in America, the Discovery Channel lied about what Africa really looks like. And then for Africans who grew up on a continent, we're not all shooting each other over here with the gangbang, shoot 'em up, toot toot. So now, because we're having conversations to realize, like, no, you've never been in a drive-by. Actually, no, I haven't gone to the village. Like, my family's from the city in Nigeria. So I think as more of us are willing to have those conversations, those bridges are being like the structure, the infrastructure is being solidified and like cemented. And obviously it's going to take time, but I think it's a lot of debunking the myths and re-educating, like unlearning all of those wrong things that you learned, and then actually learning the new things and having those safe spaces where someone can say, like, I've never been to Africa. Like, what is it like? Do you really live in a hut? First of all, no one needs to ask that question at this point. But if there is a safe space for the person not to take offense and saying no, just like I thought all of you all lived in projects. Like, I didn't realize that there were like full suburban, thriving communities of Black Americans here. So being able to have that dialogue, but it literally all boils down to dialogue. And I do think, that the crabs in the barrel analogy is true. The minute we can stop that, and I think we're doing it, but like in a grand scale, like not these small pockets of grassroots organizing here and there. The minute we stop that on a grand level, oh man, the world would be our oyster. And I'll sound like an old 55-year-old Black man from like Virginia. That's my uncle, by the way. When I say the minute that he's not even 55, he's older, but I'm not gonna tell his real age. But when that happens, not only is the world our oyster, we'll recognize why that's where he comes in, the man, why people in positions of power are so afraid of us really realizing like what liberty, freedom looks like, and how to get political power and how to get economic power. To keep your power, you have to keep somebody down. So why do you do that? You put systems and infrastructure in place to suppress that growth, be it political, be it economical, be it educational, what have you. The minute we can figure out our stuff in a grand level, I wouldn't be surprised if a national World War III broke out.
But that's the thing though, we have figured out stuff. You have Black Wall Street. Yeah. God, I didn't know your background prior to this interview. I would have dug up this article or this video that was circulating last year, but it showed
like what they did in Tulsa.
Yeah, not just Tulsa, right?
But in other places.
Yes, like there's other cities. There was other Black Wall Streets.
Absolutely, all throughout the country.
Right, and then they were either bombed or set on fire.
They were annihilated.
Exactly. Because we're capable. We have been capable.
And that's why I said we figured it out, but like big numbers. I'm talking, if it's I don't know the current stats, but let's say 13 million people who identify as Black on the census, which means there's more of us because we're not all filling out that census because we know how we feel about forms based on the history of this country. But it's 70% of us, like large numbers, can do that. Tulsa, we start Tulsa. Tulsa, they're gonna fight against Tulsa, but there's this entire community that has Tulsa's back. So because we're more connected socially with numbers, the internet, and all that stuff, that means that New York Tulsa gets to go help Tulsa and Oklahoma rebuild. They come in, so it's like there's this like connection that doesn't require a horse and a buggy like it did before. So yeah, we know, lots of people know, but it's getting past, it's working through, putting our own systems in place where that's possible. At the same time, we go through so much on a daily basis as a whole, as a community. It's hard to be consistently proactive with something like that when you're constantly reacting to all of the stuff that comes our way. So it truly is like your attention is divided. It's like, okay, do I react to this or do I prepare myself for this? There are choices that we have to make that other communities don't necessarily have to consider because there's nothing to react to.
Yeah.
Or there's a reaction every now and then, not daily, weekly, or monthly. So yeah, I think you're right. Those things are in place. It's like, what does that look like on a grand level, proactively, not the reactive side? Because I do think we do the reactive side very well. But it's like, before we have to react to something, what's that thing on the
I mean, we are resilient people, and we're built to survive. We are built to survive, but it's getting over that hurdle where we're thriving as a collective
instead of surviving. Yeah.
And even today, I didn't have a chance. I don't even know if I want to read the article, but it said Nielsen Media reported that the Black buying power is at 1.2 trillion. And people were posting that. And I was just like, man, let's talk about our income levels. Let's talk about our earnings.
Let's talk about our household net worth.
Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like we're, Black Wall Street is shifting to online, supporting Black businesses online, and that message, at least among my network, that message is circulated. But whether it's professional or entrepreneurship, like our income levels, our net worth is still lower than the next. We're spending a lot, which sounds good.
It does.
What's underneath the surface of that buying dollar, that buying power?
And I think, one, there's the huge financial literacy piece that comes with that. I think another thing is just, to this day, there are still articles that are coming out where banks are making it difficult for Black people, like no matter what ethnicity, to get a home mortgage. Like, we're not talking about the redlining of neighborhoods after World War II when the soldiers came home. Like, we're not talking about when they redid the district zoning for places like Chicago and Detroit. We're not talking about the GE bill. Like, we're talking about 2014. There are articles out there saying banks in Philadelphia were making it notoriously difficult for a Black person to get a mortgage. So it's like, when you think about the trillions that we're spending, it makes sense. Now my uncle again in Virginia, the systems in place that have been in place for a significantly long time have made it easier for us to spend our money than to invest our money. And I'm not even talking about stocks and bonds. Like, there's no reason, what did he say? Lifeland, in the pursuit of happiness, lifeland, whatever that saying is, Franklin, whatever. Land is real estate. Land is still the American way of building wealth. And like I said, to this day, they have made it notoriously difficult to do that as a community. When we can get mortgages, and we're not saying, I know there's someone listening, but I got a mortgage. I'm not talking about the exception to the rule. We always want to highlight the exception to the rule. I'm talking about a statistical representation of Black people in this country. To this day, it's still harder to get a mortgage. We get the mortgage, they give us the larger interest rates. They put all these other things in place. It's harder to build wealth that way. And yes, you can become an entrepreneur, you can invest and start it. Like, yes, there are other ways But the traditional way of building wealth in this country has been home ownership. So when you have these, I'm just going to say white people because that's what it is. We're not talking about folks who've come in here in the last 10, 20 years. I'm talking about people whose great, whoever was born here. They come from a family that can pay for them to go to college so they graduate with zero debt because they had home equity. How did they get that bill? Not the bill. How did they build that equity? Because they were able to get that mortgage when you and I's grandparent couldn't get it. So you literally have what's called generational wealth. So we're constantly playing catch up.
Yeah.
So when people, want to highlight exceptions to the rule, it's like, no, but that's why it's called institutionalized racism. Like, I'm not talking about the white man who might call me nigger on the street. I'm talking about, although I did experience that right after Trump was elected with a woman. And I was just like, you're just mad because you can't get out your parking spot. Like, I backed up for you. What do you want me to do? The entire street, this is a total tangent, but the entire street had their windows down. They were like, what's wrong with her? But that's another point. I'm not talking about isolated situations.
Right.
I'm talking about institutionalized racism, where they can prove to you that based on your name and your job application, you're not going to get called on an interview because they saw your name or they saw your zip code.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to put your address. We know who lives in that zip code.
Yeah.
That type is why it's easier. It's easier to have a meme circulate, because I saw it too, circulating on social media that says we have 1.3 trillion spending power. Yes, we do. Because when I try to invest, you make it extremely difficult for me.
Yeah.
So it's breaking down those walls and those barriers. That's a lot easier said than done. Sometimes it's policy, sometimes it's unconscious bias. Like there's all these things in play, but it's definitely unfortunate. When I saw that article about the banks in 2014 in Philly, I was like, are you serious? It didn't surprise me. At the same time, I was like, but it's 2014 though.
Yeah, and we're still going through this.
You're still making it hard, but you're telling me stop buying Jordans, buy a home. But I tried to buy the home.
Right.
But you wouldn't let me.
Right. So now I'm in an apartment full of Jordans.
That I'm going to have to try and sell on eBay and flip. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. How has networking and relationship building impacted you through your career?
It has provided what I call like a team of advisors. I will not go on record at this point to say I have a mentor. There have been times where I've had a mentor. There have been times where someone has sponsored me. Because now the new thing is like, you don't need mentorship, you need sponsorship.
Right.
You need everything, people. Like, you need everything. I hate that one size fits all. And there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. But for me at this point, because I've changed, not so much industries, but fields, so to speak, is that a team of advisors is important. I personally think it's good to have someone who's at around the same age as you experience, because she can give you advice and input from that angle. I also think it's good to have someone who is a little bit older than you, so maybe like 3 to 5 years out. And then that person who just has that, I've been in the game for 20 plus years, because you're going to get a variety of perspectives. But it has been helpful when you're thinking through like, okay, so I take the job for this pay cut because, the person your age is like, well, can you afford it right now? The person 3 to 5 years older than you, it's like, okay, well, what's your 2-year game plan? The 20 years older, it's like, all right, well, let's look this from a retirement perspective. Is the money you're not able to put away those 2 years, that temporary pay cut, is that really going to affect you long term? So I think it's good to have, like, because a lot of people say, like, Sable, I can't find a mentor. I'm like, I get it. Or they're like, there's no one to sponsor me at my current company. That's just not how it's structured. Or the people that I have good relationships with are not in a position to sponsor me. I get it. You can still have a team of advisors if nothing else. And these don't have to be your girlfriends. I mean, that's great if they are. Yeah. You don't have to celebrate birthdays with them. But people who understand you, your long-term goals, your short-term goals, your past experiences. So when you have that question or that idea, you need to run You need to run through them. They get you enough to be able to answer that. And then for anyone to go, but do they have to be in the same industry? Here's the thing. I don't think everyone necessarily has to be in the same industry as you to be on your team advisors. I do think the majority of them should be in the same industry, simply because there are things that are specific to the legal world in navigating that have nothing to do with education, that are related to education but diddly squat to do with medicine or media. So it's not that everyone has to be in the same industry. But it's important that they understand your industry and how career advancement, upward movement works. Because how are they going to advise you if you always have to explain certain things about your industry?
Yeah, I agree. Because I have a finance background and it was tough. And as I know and understands. And then even when I felt like I was one of the first to jump into entrepreneurship. And then I was like, no, I really understand.
I'm alone. No one can see about me. Yeah, like basically.
So why did you start realbrowngirls.com?
So it started with, it was like, let's just put up all these pretty pictures of things that inspire me. Like it started with the Instagram profile before there was actually website and services and all that stuff. And then I was like, this has no value, and let's not pretend that art is your ministry and random like quotes and postings. Like this isn't doing anything. And I thought one day, like, what do people come to me for? It was for resume. Like I was always writing someone's resume, rewriting their resume, editing their resume, writing their cover letter, prepping them for the interview, things like that. And I was just like, all right, but we're the same age and you're always coming to me. That means there's no one to go to. Now that there's no one else, but within your space of adults, peers, there's no one you can go to ask this question. So I rebranded the content. It wasn't a long time before I rebranded, but I rebranded the content and people really, really took to that. And even to this day, I talk about more soft skills than I talk about hard skills, because most of us have the hard skills. Like, can you work this program? That's a yes or no. You either work Illustrator or you don't. Whether or not you're novice, intermediate, advanced, is still a yes or no question. But that, how do I navigate the workspace to get the promotion? That's not a hard skill. That's a set of soft skills. Or how do I negotiate my salary? Because I negotiated my first salary when I was 24. I was at a school and we were all miserable and we were going to leave and we were all interviewing. It was a set of us. I was the only person that negotiated my offer. They gave me the first offer. I didn't like it. I went to an elder. I said, I want more money. How do I do? Literally, I said word for word, I want more money. How do I do this? And he said, well, how bad do you want the job? I was like, but I really, really like them, but I'm not taking it for this. He walked me through that process, having no idea that my friends, they just accepted the first offer. Didn't even like the first offer and accepted it. And I was like, wait, you could negotiate. And they were like, you can? Yeah, girl, they always got more money. I just didn't know how to get the money.
Yeah.
I knew I've heard adults say there's always more money. I just didn't know how so just really providing like tips, tools, and strategies to navigate those spaces. And, having taught in high school, like I'm well aware of the fact that we graduate these kids, they go off to college, we graduate them from college, and you still were never provided the soft skills.
Yeah.
So I could work it, mind you, I'm not going to say I'm proficient in Excel. Like I don't use Excel the way someone in finance does.
Right.
So, you get to say like, I know how to use Excel, but you still don't know how to navigate the politics that are in some offices. And I call it politicking and licking, because there's a lot of things happening. All these degrees, all these certifications, there was never a course that was specifically for soft skills. Nope. And it's like we expect you graduate from college, you're maybe 21, 22, depending on your birthday, and we just expect you to know. But you didn't teach me. Mm-hmm. So providing that space. And once I rebranded the content, besides, everyone likes follower count going up, you throw an event and 50 people actually come out and it's paid. because you saw the value. And like, you actually read my newsletter. You respond to me. You ask me questions. You sign up for the services because it's a need. And I think that the need for women of color is even different because depending on your family background, your mother might not know. Like, there are still those of us in this country who are the first to graduate from college. Like, the first have not stopped happening.
Yeah.
So that means when you have certain specific career questions, mommy can't help you. Mommy can pray for you. Mommy can cook you dinner so you can go to sleep. You might be anxious, but you can be fed. But mommy still can't walk you through negotiating that salary. Mommy's never been in that position. So realizing it was still a need. And that's kind of how the rebrand happened. Like, no more inspirational pictures of pretty flowers in Central Park. Like, that had to go.
So what do you consider a professional revamp?
To me, a professional revamp is, let's clean up how you appear on paper. Let's clean up how you appear on paper. Notice I didn't say online. That's not where I live. But let's redo your resume. Let's redo your cover letter, and let's redo how you communicate your skills and assets to a prospective employer. A lot of us, I tell this to clients, and I know they roll their eyes at me because I can hear it on the phone. Like, I know you just rolled your eyes. But at the end of the day, no matter how special you think you are, there are millions of other adults who have the same title, the same position, doing the same thing you are, just in a different building. So how do you distinguish yourself in your resume? How do you distinguish yourself in your cover letter? That's your professional revamp. Like, I'm a high school English teacher. Everyone who graduated had a high school English teacher. How do you make yourself sound special from every other high school English teacher that existed? So that's the revamp. And for women, it's focusing on numbers. Like, I don't really do men's resumes, but I've done my friends' resumes. And they have numbers all throughout their resumes. And I've said to friends, I know you're lying. Like, you didn't do that because you would have told us. And they're like, I just embellished it a little bit.
He didn't have $1 million in a book of business.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't close out $3 billion in revenue in one quarter. Like, what are you talking about? But their resumes will be full of numbers. True, whether the numbers are accurate or not, they're there. Generically speaking, because someone's going to go, but my resume has numbers. Remember, I'm always talking about general, not specific scenarios. A resume from a woman has numbers, but it's more about it's more qualitative than quantitative. Mm-hmm. But the only way to really distinguish yourself is quantitative. Like, I'll give a quick example. It's real easy for me to say I was a high school English teacher. I taught 5 sections with 150 plus students for however many years. Cool. All right, Sable. So did every other high school English teacher in the country. What makes you so different? But if I tell you I had the highest reading growth in every building I taught in, out of a department of 10 or 12 English teachers from 9th to 12th grade, then it goes, oh, wait, well, how did you do that? How do you distinguish yourself? Numbers. So that's one thing for resume. Cover letter is really how you tell your story. People hate cover letters. I get it. But it's how do you narrate your story and target it to that position. Not your generic Sable story. Not that I'm a girl from Brooklyn. But although I have put that in a cover letter and got an interview, I don't recommend you do that, guys. I take risks where other people, what's your risk factor? Like, investing, that's totally up to you. But it's like, how do you take I'm a girl from Brooklyn and own your story and connect it to the position? Because people are sending out generic cover letters. And it's like, okay, you did XYZ, but what does XYZ have to do with this position? Kind of like your English teacher used to tell you, write your essay as if the person who's reading your essay doesn't know you. Like, your English teacher is grading your essay. She knows you. Write your essay as if she does not know you. That's how you approach your cover letter. And tell them, like, explicitly tell them how your skills relate to the job. We all know these skills are transferable for the most part, but you have to spell it out for them. Don't assume they're going to go, oh, if she could do this, she could do that. No, they're not wasting your time. This is not 1960 or 1930 where women weren't applying for jobs, so the only competition was men. We are in a global economy here. Spell it out for them. Don't make them think they're lazy. And then as far as the interview goes, with the professional revamp, is really just like there are standard interview questions that get asked of you no matter the industry, position, and field. Like, obviously there are more specific questions, maybe if you're, round 3 of the interview, because there are all those companies that throw you through hoops and bounds to get on board before they give you an offer letter. But it's getting better at answering those questions. And I think from a woman's standpoint, generally speaking, and this is beyond race and even class, but definitely those who grew up lower class, lower middle class, it's not really a high income barrier. Is owning your successes. Like, it's really like I personally think, I have done no research for this. So if you're a PhD person listening, please don't slide in my DMs and cuss me out. I have no research for this. It was not on SPSS trying to figure this out. But I think culturally we're taught humility, be humble, don't boast. If you do what you're supposed to do, they will notice. From an American corporate organization angle, that is the complete opposite. No, honey, you boast. If just because you do their work does not mean they're going to notice. And not being afraid to own up to your successes, and how to get comfortable describing that in a way that still feels natural to someone who's been taught humility. You say humility too many times, it doesn't come out right. But who's been taught to be humble.
How do you find the balance, especially now in the age of personal brand and side hustles? Or let me say personal brand outside of corporate personal brand. How do you find the balance of when you have more outside success versus success as an employee?
I tell people, as corny as it sounds, I think that timing is everything. If you grew up in a religious household, or you went to church at some point, you probably heard the scripture, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. It's Ecclesiastes something. Please, guys, I haven't been in parochial school in a long time. But I say that to say timing is 50% of the battle. For most things. Personally, with relationships with a significant other, you just met him or her and she's beautiful, he's beautiful, but he's like, oh, by the way, I'm doing Peace Corps for 2 years in Tanzania. Oh, but I'm not moving there. Timing.
Yeah.
Like timing. And I think a lot, like even with stocks, like before Tesla, is it Tesla? Yeah, before Tesla was Tesla, I know someone who bought Tesla stocks, but anybody knew who it was and what the company was, what it stood for. Boom, Tesla blows up out of nowhere. Shorty had $20,000 on her account. Timing. She had those stocks for at least 2-3 years before anything happened. Not everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon when a stock costs more. So I think a lot of us really, really forget how much like timing is a part of what happens. So for someone who's having more success and they're 5 to 9, so to speak, versus their 9 to 5, I say that don't necessarily mean you need to quit your 9 to 5. It just means in this current season, make sure you're pouring into where you're getting more return, like your return, the return on your investment. Not that you're going to neglect your 9 to 5 and show up late and leave early and not perform your deliverables, but recognize what is giving you the best return on your investment and nurture that. And there might be a season where it's the reverse. That's okay. It might be a season where you're like, well, screw this 9 to 5. I'm going to go 5 to 9. If you've been nurturing it the right way, that might be a possibility, like a realistic possibility. But timing is everything, and ignore other people's timelines. I think more than anything, it's you at some point, you have to channel your inner American and be selfish. Because it's a very I society. Like if you come from a we society, we culture, it's very unique to try and navigate as a I. Like really, like I am Sable. Like, yeah, we know that. But that's when it's beneficial to open those Western eyes, close those non-Western eyes real quick, and embrace yourself. Because when you start comparing and contrasting yourself with someone else, and you're ignoring the timing of it all, that's when you start getting jealous. That's when you start getting envious. That's where you start deciding, I'm going to quit this. It's not working. What about me? Blah, 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 blah. Not recognizing that their timing is definitely going to be different than yours simply because they're an entire different human. Like, that's a whole human being. You're trying to play tit for tat with on timing, and it's not going to work.
That's real. That's real. What do you have coming up?
So what do I have coming up? There is an event coming up in April. I will be letting the date out in the next 2 weeks. I know, like, you're like, but Monday is April, Sable. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but
we got time.
I know we got time. And it's more of it's like a fireside chit chat with folks. No special person. There will be someone who's helping facilitate the conversation, but based on the event that happened in November, like really having a round table discussion, tip tools like that, where I am doing that again. We're going to facilitate something very similar to that again. We're just focusing on balance, even though sometimes the word balance irks me, but for the sake of context, balancing like your mental health while like grinding on your career. What does that really look like, especially as a woman of color? But besides that, it's raising money for these scholarships, because I came up with the grand idea to raise $25,000 to give out summer scholarships for girls of color in the city who want to participate in some of these really amazing programs, but simply can't afford it. Like, there's no access, financial access. I looked up, I did do my research for my researchers listening. For nationally, 1 in 5 children live in poverty. For New York City, it is 1 in 3. And this is a city where on average, a 1-bedroom apartment is about $1,700, $1,800 at this point, because inflation is very disrespectful. So yeah, so far we've raised $61.75. So the goal is just to keep the funds coming in to award some scholarships, because as a former teacher and as someone in the professional world, I understand the importance of summer and exploration and fine-tuning those soft skills. Because, you know, during that calendar school year as a student, you're really fine-tuning those hard skills. You're not really fine-tuning those soft skills in diverse spaces the way you can in a summer program. So that's the goal. Raise these dollars. Channel my inner philanthropist and raise these dollars. But yeah, those are the 2 things coming up. There'll be an awards ceremony in June. But my brain, we're not even there right now. We're on get this April roundtable going and raising the dollars for the babies, even though some of them are like 16 and they're taller than me, but they're still babies.
It's all good. Both of them are important issues. I'm an advocate for mental health. Mm-hmm. Just did an interview this week on that, on my experiences in therapy. Mm-hmm. And I speak about it freely, hoping to encourage more folk, Black and brown folk, to just go and saying like nothing's wrong, but get help.
Sometimes you need that check-in.
Yeah, just to talk to someone. And then New York just got is it Superintendent Carranza? He just left Houston and now he's in New York. So good luck.
And I have such an insight on some of the things happening in Houston, simply because all of the friends I have in Houston are teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I heard that, I was just like, why do we keep recycling folks? Like, if it didn't work in Houston or like the person in DC, why send them to Chicago? That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
In this K-12 space, it's very, very interesting how you can just not be as effective as folks imagine in one city and then just hop on over to another city, but like you're the same person.
Yeah, and he was only here, I think, 14 or 18 months.
Yes.
From San Francisco. Definitely California, but I think San Francisco.
Yes, yes. So when I heard, one of my friends texted me immediately when the news went, but I had heard it on my end too. I was like, can we send him back? And she said, well, we don't want to get here. I said, well, they have a rubber room for teachers. What if we could just have a rubber room for ineffective administrators? Like, You might be great in a different setting. Like, maybe public pre-K to 12 is not for you, but maybe it's private. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's curriculum development. Like, no one's saying you can't work. I'm not trying to, snatch your livelihood away from you. I'm just saying we're doing a lot of rolling the dice throughout the country with education.
Yeah.
And when you think, it's like how we want, first of all, we're not even the richest country. Like, let's not pretend that China doesn't have half our debt. But, for us to have the esteem that we have, it makes no sense what our education system looks like. K to 12 and collegiate, because folks graduating from college and universities in other countries, they could run circles around us.
Yeah.
Circles, and did it for a fraction of the cost because it only cost $4,000 US over there.
And now a lot of them are having tuition free.
Yes. Yes.
Well, our tuition's going up because you want to build a bigger stadium, arena, whatever the sports teams are doing. But yeah.
The manner in which we handle education in this country is super, super fascinating. But to me, I'm like, maybe it's that moral compass. Maybe it's that moral compass. Because even within, like, I can't even go as far as to say that it's a black versus white thing, or just a white versus non-white thing. Because overall, it's not good. Ours just happens to be worse.
Right.
We can talk about, property taxes and all that kind of stuff. But, it's not that those who are in quote unquote better neighborhoods, when they graduate, the international students still can run circles around them. So it's just us as a whole. We just have the crappiest of the crappy system.
Yeah.
But it's still, I'm just like, I don't understand.
Have you always been this aware?
I was that ninth grader who preferred her nonfiction books. And I went to, like I said, before high school, because that was the first real diverse school. Mm-hmm. I was in parochial schools, with the exception of second and third grade. That was in Chicago, and that was diverse, but it was also second and third grade. I don't really remember anything besides my teacher's name, and I had the same teacher for both years. Miss Carpenter, if you happen to be listening, hi. But I was in schools that were very aware, and it was woven into the curriculum. So, I can't say this would have happened had my schooling been somewhere else. Yeah. I have no way of deciding that. Unless I just no, Michelle, I definitely would have been like this. I literally, from the first schools I was in, our uniforms was kente. So I don't know if what would have happened. What would have happened naturally? And by the time I was in a non-parochial school, you had already had 8 years of that kind of schooling, with the exception of second and third grade. But you basically had that kind of schooling that even once in a new environment, I was like, oh, this is strange. Not so much the people. I was like, the curriculum. Wait, so y'all never read Sheikh Anta Diop? No? You don't know that Africa's a whole continent? No. You don't know that Black people speak more than English and we could speak Spanish too? No. So that was more strange to me than anything. So I really had to learn, you can't blame people for what they don't know, especially if no one taught them. You would not have known that either if no one taught you. Or if no one taught you how to read and you didn't pick up the book yourself to start reading it. So yeah, that was more so schooling, and then it was just in me. Even now, I read some of these fiction books and I'm bored. I'm like, this is great, but can we contextualize this historically for a second, please? It's the narrative is fantastic, but you do realize that this was based on. So I'm that person. I watched a movie. I'm like, that was a really dope green screen, y'all. That's I was like, yo, that's fly. I want to know how they pull that off. How did that work out? So yeah, that happened. But definitely reading. And here's the thing, I don't think you only have to read nonfiction. they can be dense, heavy, sometimes boring, but I do think it's important to read from all perspectives. Which is how I came up with like my moral compass analogy. Because when you read from the other lens, it's like you really don't think you did anything wrong. That is fascinating to me.
Privilege at its finest.
At its finest. Like, you really have found a way to justify this. Like, that is extremely fascinating to me. So I think reading has been the best thing. Of course, there's all these articles now, but this is where credentials do matter to me though, Michelle. Like, journalism has shifted so much in the last 10 to 12 years with blogging. I am definitely a proponent of reading things online, but publication and the writer is important to me. Because I could go right now and put together some 2,000 word, 1,500 word blog posts with links to other stuff to validate what I'm saying. But I have no background. You don't know if I really did the research. I'm just going to link to articles that agree with me. I didn't highlight the counter argument or any of those things. So that is definitely a space where I'm like, okay, depending on the topic at hand here, like, we're not talking about best dress, worst dress. Depending on the topic at hand here, I want to know, you don't have to have a doctor of philosophy in history. I just want to know, like, as a journalist, as a researcher, like, you took the time to really make sure you put together an objective piece of writing that allows the reader to deduce whatever they're going to deduce. I'm still going to deduce someone was evil, but, you gave me the right facts to do that.
Right.
To really make my own, to derive my own conclusion. So that is a space where I'm like, but what publication was it? Who wrote it? Okay.
Right.
That is a space where I do that for sure.
How can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can, I like snail mail for birthdays.
Okay.
Let me stop. I do like birthday cards though. I'm starting to send those too. Like, the memes at this point, everyone's sending the same memes. It's not as enduring anymore. But if you don't have my mailing address, that's totally fine. realbrowngirls.com. You can get in touch with me there. There are blog posts that happen every other week. I'm not trying to kill writers here. We all got other jobs. And you can get in touch Facebook and Instagram simply at Real Brown Girls. There are no special spellings. Everything is spelled the traditional way. And there you can be part of the community. We're going to start online events soon because I've traveled the country doing different events, but it is a lot. I am one person. So it's like there's another way to connect folks. And then the light bulb, it was really a duh moment, like online events, duh. But this did happen just that way. So online events, if you're not in the New York City area, but yes, Facebook, regular website, and Instagram, Real Brown Girls, you can find us.
I want you to give us an action item. What's one thing we can do, whether it's the professional revamp?
Ooh, that's a good question, Michelle.
Give us an action item.
And then you didn't even give me a subject, so you let my whole mind just go, okay.
I didn't ask you. Well, I eventually got to my questions, but we spent like a good 30 minutes.
We did. You can blame me. I tend to do that to people.
No, it's great though, because I changed my podcast, about life strategies instead of, because it was solely focused at business at one point. Too much of it's intertwined. And then I'm not into pop culture that much, but I'm like, we do have to start having these conversations. And I'm all about creating safe spaces. And I think my podcast is like the first outlet for me, coming from me. It's the first outlet I have to do that. And just hoping I pick the right people to interview and it resonates with the person on the other side.
Pop culture is definitely interesting. It's always something happening.
Yeah, but
and then there's these subcultures within pop culture, and there's own special niches, and I'm just like, this. I start feeling like an old lady.
Yes. And like, I need to find, like, because my young best friend is getting older, so she's no longer
in. Like, you need someone even younger to keep you abreast.
I gotta recruit a younger person.
I know. They're like, did you hear? Like, hear what? No. Did you see? See what? No. And I'm like, wait, who is that?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's funny because I was thinking about that yesterday, and then it's definitely an interesting time. And I'm only 35, and I'm like, I'm still young, but Michelle, you're getting old because you're out of touch. So out of touch. I was speaking out of college, and I said something like "jump in the DMs," and they're like, "It's slide." Like the whole
wrong verb, Michelle. Wrong verb.
Right. I was like, oh, okay. It's like that's why I'm here. So that's why I got to keep.
So you can keep my verb tense right. Yeah. I was somewhere. This was maybe about a month ago, and it was middle school. No, it was ninth graders, and they were talking about something, and there was one who just looked like she wouldn't make fun of me. So I kind of pulled her to the side. I was like, "Hey, you, come here for a sec." I didn't know her name, and she came over, and I was like, "What is this?" Because if I could figure out what this little saying means, I can understand the conversation.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she told, I don't even remember what it was. And I was like, that's what that means? And she said, I didn't say it made sense, Miss Sable. I'm just saying that's what it means.
Yeah.
I'm old.
Yeah.
I don't know the new slang. Put on a certain song, they're like, who is this, miss?
Yeah.
You don't know the classic? Like, it's not acceptable. But yeah, pop culture it's a lot. But so many things are so, like you said, they're so intertwined. It's hard to only how do you talk about Black Panther and not go off into other stuff? Or the Hollywood and getting certain movies greenlit. Like, how do you do that? It's very difficult. That's why I'm not a journalist, that's, or some, like a host. That's a different beast. Oh, but the thing, I still didn't give you that thing. My homework.
Action item.
Oh, my action item. This is a doozy, but if you have not done this already, I'm going to start with that caveat. There's always the person who has in the room. And like, so what you want me to do? And I'm like, I will find something else for you. But if you have not done this already, I would say sit down and write a letter to your current self from your older self. What advice would you tell your current self? And then you pack that baby up and you put it in your black box with all the love letters you got in high school. And then when you're reminiscing one day and cleaning out the garage or the attic, you'll find it. Don't throw it out. But because to me, a lot of it, remember I said timing, but a lot of things is about perspective.
Yeah.
And when you really think, isn't it crazy? I was going to say the world and I got a globe right here. Y'all can't see the globe. I'm so sorry. But when you really think about how massive Earth is and how you're just one little person taking up your little amount of space, all of these things that we are stressing about and driving ourselves mad about, it's not that they don't mean anything. It's just that in the grand scheme of things, they're just moments in time that are fleeting. It's just going to go away. It's just going to pass. So write that letter to yourself and be as creative and open and honest and extra as you want to be. You can say, I'm writing this to you from a beach in Fiji, drinking my shit. You can add all the imagery you want to add, especially if you're poetic like that. Wax the poetry all throughout. But write that letter. You can read it after. You can just fold it up right away. But perspective is everything. Like right now, it's like, oh, I really want a new job. You're right. You do. You probably deserve one. You want more money, what have you. But there's someone somewhere. It could be down the block or hundreds of miles, thousands of miles away, who just wants their mother to wake up for that coma. Perspective.
I do say gratitude shapes perspective.
So that's a good one. Put that on a shirt. Sell it. So yeah, I would say write that. A lot of times we write, from our current age, we write it to our younger self. Like, what would you, don't worry if they bullied you in school, baby. You're going to end up, you're not the ugly duckling, whatever. That was one of my favorite books, by the way. But but from your older self, what would you say? Okay. You wouldn't beat yourself up about it. No, you wouldn't.
I actually was asked that question yesterday for an interview. And I just said, be patient with yourself.
That's not a whole letter, though, Michelle. That works for an interview.
Right. Well, yeah, right.
Yeah. But and it's true. Like, that was just why I said timing. Like, you put on those Western eyes, close those non-Western eyes, and embrace that self-timing. You're laughing because you know it's true.
I'm laughing because of the word Western.
Put on those Western eyes. Put on those Western eyes and be patient with yourself, because we have all these these timelines, and you learn it from when you're little. You got to get to kindergarten, And you're laughing, but it's so true. It's like, you got to get through kindergarten. And it's like, I'm a first grader, mommy. You got to get through elementary school. You're going to graduate. And then you graduate. You're like, all right, it's middle school time. You're a big girl now with double digits. And then you're 8th grade. You're like, you can't play games in high school. Your high school teachers aren't going to let you get away with what your middle school teachers let you get away with, which is so not always true, but sometimes. And then your high school teachers are like, it's a different ball game on the campus. And it's always like this, like, all right, next thing. And then you got a whole nation of kids graduating, and they're like, what next? Because there's no one to tell you what to do next after you reach that final graduation. And now we're all sitting here confused. And then because there's no one else to tell us, we're like, well, by 30, because that's the magical number that's come up in all the movies over.
Nice round number.
Nice round number. It's like, well, by 30, I need to have the Mercedes, the husband, the 2 kids, the wife, and then you're like, well, I graduated 22. I got 8 years to make this happen. And then you just put your own hardcore timelines on yourself, because that's the only way we know how to operate. After one goal is crushed, get to the next goal.
Yeah.
And there's no room for patience in that. Yeah. And then people are 25 having nervous breakdowns because they didn't reach a goal.
That's true. I can talk to you forever.
And then we really got to tell them to go to the therapist because they're having a nervous breakdown because they didn't reach a goal.
The quarter life crisis.
Yeah. And you're like, but baby, you're only 25. And she's like, but you're only 25. But I had to do X, Y, Z by this. Who told you that? I did. Why? But you just graduated 3 years ago. You was already going to be married with 3 kids at 25? You were going to have one baby after another. You didn't give your body. So it's like, how?
You break it down like that. Yeah.
You didn't give your body a break.
Yeah.
So, but I really think it starts with schooling. It's like kindergarten. Got to get the first, and it just got to get the test score, the grade. And then next thing you know, there's no schooling in place. So we do it. We do it to ourselves. Just like the people. I have a friend, she is in her early 30s. She's not married or engaged. She's not currently dating anyone. And you would think World War III is on its way. And I'm like, breathe a little bit. Yeah. Relax a little bit. I'm not the oracle. I can't tell you if and when he's coming, but I can say like you're an entire human being. Your value is not placed on whether or not you're single, married, divorced, what have you. So you're still a whole person without this other person that you're looking for who might come your way and be a hot mess.
Girl, that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, you're right.
When you coming back.
So yeah, patience, I like that. You said it, a lot more concise and clear cut. That was very much like a pitch letter. Clearly that's not my forte, but I would say write that letter. Yeah. Read it afterwards, but write that letter, because it's like being okay to slow down. If you're on social media, if you're in that millennial age, if you're not grinding nonstop, people make it seem like you're not doing anything. I tell all of the people, I get 8 hours of sleep every night. I'm sorry, there's tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Because when someone reads my eulogy, whether I'm 40 or 80, I want to say she enjoyed life. I don't want them to have to figure out what to write in the eulogy because I never saw anyone because I was grinding all day for this new goal. Like, no, she didn't miss my birthday. She still came. Oh, what happened? Like, relax a little bit. Relax a little bit.
I love it. I love it all. Thank you for everything. Just thank you. So much insight, so much perspective. Hey, everyone, remember, I believe in you. Personal connection leads to an influential network. So thanks for networking with Michelle.